Hello everyone, just a quick word from your friendly editor/husband. For all of you who listen to So I'm Watching This Show and own an Android device, do me a favor. Go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all of your favorite podcasts directly on your Android devices. I use the app and love it. I can search for the podcasts I want to listen to, select them as favorites, and have them all just a click away. Make sure you set So I'm Watching the Show as a favorite so you don't miss any new episodes. Again, the app is Podcast Republic, available on your Android device. Thanks!
We are having a monster thunderstorm right now.
Are you?
Yeah, so...
Oh, holy shit.
You can hear it? Yeah, there's going to be some thunder on this episode.
It's threatening me around these parts, but it hasn't really started yet. I didn't put Wilson away. He's hiding in my bedroom.
Oh, from the thunder?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, puppy.
He's the fraidiest. He's even fraidier than Digby.
Yeah, he's super scared of thunder. And he's also... I love how scared he gets when Tim watches basketball.
Oh, does he?
Because Tim, shouts at the TV and Wilson, cowers under the dining room table.
Yeah, no, Digby just kind of, barks at it. Digby's kind of like, whoa, what's that? What's going on? But Wilson is definitely like, don't hit me. No, I was going to say, actually, hello, everybody. And welcome to So I'm Watching This Show. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is, I'm not going to do that again.
I don't know. I think it was great. Just go with it. Because I was going to be like, you said welcome again.
I did. Do you remember the first time I did it? I was like, that was weird. You got the gist. That's why I'm watching this show. We're going to watch a show and then talk about it.
Welcome.
Yes, in case that wasn't made clear. Awkwardly the first time. Welcome. So this is our Midsummer episode. That's something that it's not, I was going to be like, it's a tradition, but it's only the second annual. My mother was always into the solstice stuff, and so we really didn't grow up celebrating it, and certainly not the way that we kind of do now. And it's the kind of thing that I said that if I ever had kids, I would raise them with it. I would certainly incorporate some of the more not exclusively pagan holidays, but some of it. I think it's fun.
Yeah, why not? Let's do a maypole.
A little bit of Beltane, a little bit of, just bring them all in. Hanukkah, Ramadan, just we'll do it all. I think it'll be great.
We could have Hanukkah food at Christmas.
Very, very worldly children. No, well, we wanted to do the movie Midsummer, but for some reason they're releasing it in July, and I don't know if that's I don't know if that's because they think that most Americans, although are most Americans going to be going to that movie?
I doubt it. No.
Yeah, because Midsummer is the middle to end of June, usually the 20th or the 21st. I think it's one of the ones that changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also my anniversary.
Mm-hmm. One of two.
One of two, yeah.
One of the few times where you're being the extra bitch and not me.
Look.
Yeah, let's not delve further into that story because it'll make me look real bad.
I can pull the dead mom card so easy.
But the whole time I've been sort of humming this song. Every time that Merlin comes up in my mind, I'm like dun 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 dun, and then I realized it was Hercules, and I was
okay. I was I don't know what that is, so
that's not the right thing. So we haven't even gotten to the topic of the episode. So last year we fittingly did a Midsummer Night's Dream, and this year, we decided to keep. I think we'll mostly be in the fantasy theme. And certainly,
for sure,
the Midsummer movie, fantasy horror adjacent. And so we decided to revisit the 1998 miniseries Merlin.
NBC
miniseries Merlin. I am a little bit excited to talk to you about this. I had two big realizations going into this. And I don't think this is one of the realizations, but I have a very distinct memory of talking about this miniseries with you. Mm-hmm. And it feels recent. I don't know if this is a thing that everybody experiences, but do you have some old memories that feel more recent than they are. And when you think about it, you're like, man, that's a good, like, 15 years ago. But
yeah, definitely. I would say the last time I remember discussing this miniseries outside of the podcast was me, you, and Yeti. Were talking about miniseries month on Sci-Fi, because that's
in 2006.
Exactly, yeah. So that's the last time I remember discussing this miniseries.
And I remember both of you and Yeti, hi Yeti, being enthusiastic about it. And
yes,
I remember
that was like one of the biggest things we had in common was missing miniseries month on Sci-Fi, because it was so good.
Specifically Merlin, like you guys loved it. And I remember like sharing in that. And so I was really excited to rewatch it. And then when I was sitting down, I was like, I had two vague memories kind of like settle in. And the first one is I was like, I don't know that I ever actually watched all of it.
No way.
I think when I was a kid, when I was younger, because they did the Odyssey the year before. And
with Vanessa Williams. Yes. Let's watch that.
And also Isabella Rossellini and Bernadette Peters.
Shit, that's right. God, I missed that.
Yeah.
Now it's all the stupid live things that they can't get right.
What do you mean?
Like they do all the live theater things, and it's like a couple of them were okay, but like I miss the miniseries. I miss them so hard.
They're here. They're just called limited series now, and they're too real. They're too prestige. They're too grounded. We're not doing like the 10th Kingdom.
Yeah, like Chernobyl.
Yeah, that was the 10th Kingdom was a hotbed. We ought to do that next year.
Okay, I've never seen the 10th Kingdom.
Well, we sat down to watch it. And you couldn't. You tapped out hard.
Oh, is it bad?
Yeah, we've discussed it on the show before.
Okay.
Because you forgot until I brought up it was Ed O'Neill is like the troll king, and he has these like troll children, and they say things like "suck an elf." Suck an elf. Right. And you were like, I can't watch this.
Yeah, that's up there with the Magical Legend of the Leprechaun. Yeah. Okay.
Which we're gonna do next year for St. Patrick's Day. But
we are. We were gonna do it this year and we ran out of time. So if there is an NBC miniseries you'd like us to cover, let us know.
Well, let me finish telling my story. Let me finish telling my story before you throw that out there. I remember being stoked for almost all of these. And then I remember getting about 20 minutes into them every single time and being like, oh, this is boring.
Okay.
I have this memory of feeling like I should do things, like feeling like I should go over here, or I should say this, or I should like that. And that, I guess, is probably pretty common, but I was having a hard time placing myself. I couldn't figure out what kind of person I was. So there was a period from like 7th to 11th grade where I thought I was like the fantasy goth kid.
Okay. You're not the fantasy goth kid. You're the fantasy kid. You're not the fantasy goth kid.
Well, fantasy, sure, but I'm not like the unicorn blacklight poster kid. Like, I'm more mainstream than that. Like, the Britney Spears stan overtakes that.
Okay. I get it.
And so I remember, especially in like the late 90s, really leaning into the whole Renaissance Fair thing. And it was fun. To the point where it's like I'm still trying to get us to go to the Tampa Renaissance Fair.
I was going to say maybe you're subconsciously like torpedoing that plan every year because you're like, I'm not that person.
Well, I am to an extent, but it's like I remember getting, a good 30, 40 minutes in when Rutger Hauer shows up and I'm like, oh, I don't actually care about any of this. It's like dudes talking, intense about war. And I was like, oh. So I honestly, if I have seen this, it is once, like maybe when it aired. And again, I remember being excited for it, but I like the middle, like honestly, the stuff with Guinevere, I remembered that Lena Headey was Guinevere, but I remember nothing about
else.
The third hour, like nothing. And so sitting down to watch this was kind of interesting. And I found it to be certainly a mixed bag. I guess before we start like breaking it down further, I do usually like to ask, what did you think? Like, what was your take? What was your?
I mean, I remember loving this movie or this miniseries, and while I agree with you that parts of it are boring, I was having such fun yesterday watching it. I really was. I'm with you about the like, I don't give a shit about Rutger Hauer. Where it's like, what a weird part for him to choose to take.
Yeah, he's not even Uther Pendragon.
Or yeah, no, he's Vortigern or something.
Well, yeah, no, he's not. Yeah, I was like, huh?
Yeah. I've gotten to the point where for some of this stuff, I cannot divorce my nostalgia from the actual thing. So I don't know if I was loving it because I remembered loving it or if I was loving it because I actually loved it. But I mean, obviously also, this is like a relatively cheaply made miniseries for NBC. So it's parts of it are extremely laughable, but parts of it are fucking great.
It was $30 million, which
that's not cheap in 98.
I was like, no, the late 90s, it was quite the production, and it was well received. I remember that.
Yeah.
My experience with this miniseries and this rewatch was many and varied.
Mm-hmm.
For starters, I'm going to go ahead and say it took me 6 hours and 40 minutes to watch this thing.
Oh, I did it in a tight 3. I just watched the one right after the other, yeah.
Every 20 minutes I was pausing to do something or look something up. I ran to the grocery store. You know what I mean? Like, it was barely keeping my attention.
No.
And there's certainly a fondness. It's very of its time, and I mean that in a good and bad way. At certain times, that's one of its strengths. Because do you remember, like, the whole New Age mysticism and stuff was really in like, the mid to late 90s with Inya and crystals and...
peasant blouses.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Buffy, it's all over that.
Yeah.
Paganism, Wicca, and all that. And so some of the elements that I think work best are that. Like, in particular, anything and everything on Miranda Richardson is just
100%.
So 90s in the best possible way. Like,
Miranda Richardson is really the standout of this miniseries.
I forgot how iconic her performance was.
She is iconic just on her own, and then she has managed over her career to get like 100 iconic roles too.
I completely forgot the whisper voice, and like when it started,
Mab or the Lady of the Lake.
For Mab,
yeah.
And when it started, I was like, "Oh my god, what a choice!"
I'm going to create a leader for the people. A powerful wizard who'll save Britain and bring the people back to us and the old ways.
And she just stuck with it. I kept waiting for it to phase out, and it didn't. Like, no. Also, did you notice that like half of the cast was dubbed?
Well, I didn't notice it about like half the cast, but I do know that they dubbed Isabella Rossellini's voice over young Nimue, because I was like, that voice does not belong to that girl at all.
For me, it wasn't that voice does not belong to that girl, that is Isabella Rossellini. She has
just so unquestioningly her voice. Yeah,
such a specific voice that it was laughable. I was having a very hard time. And they kept the girl screaming. Like, it was whatever that actress' name was. It was her actual screaming, but then it was Isabella Rossellini being like, "Help me, Merlin." Like,
that was a pretty good impression.
Don't ask me to do it again. I couldn't, but it was so odd. And because I also think a lot of Miranda Richardson stuff was dubbed, and probably because of the whisper voice.
That could be, yeah. Also, I mean, it makes it feel a little bit more mystical, too.
Mm-hmm.
Having it feel like the voices are otherworldly. Mm-hmm. But I didn't notice it on, like, most of the characters.
There were some, not all of them, but there was some of it where I was like, oh, boy. And also, because it's like, why did they do it for Nimue, but not Arthur?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or
it was
young Merlin, you mean?
Or yeah. Sorry.
You think, like, why wasn't Sam Neill's voice coming out of that child?
Mm-hmm. Well, I wrote this note early on where I was like, these effects aren't terrible, like, at all. And I did write that note pre-Dragon and Griffins, I guess. Whatever those, like, sugar glider Griffins were.
Well, also, the dragon had 4 legs. Or 6 legs.
Uh-huh.
Which was weird.
It was an ambitious design, and the way the wings were.
Yeah.
It was a very ambitious design, but they, like, overshot with the CGI was not there in a way that, like, I didn't mind the green screening and stuff. That kind of was charming.
Well, and it was also the thing that you always say where it was consistent for the most part.
The entire production had that, like, artificial sheen. And so I didn't mind, like, and it also, they did a lot with ramping the camera speed. Like, faster and slower, and more so faster in a way that I liked and actually thought, because remember we did that a little bit with Scarlet Witch and Age of Ultron, and that alone
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I wish she did that trippy stuff more frequently.
Exactly. Well, and then, but the complaint that I have regarding that is that then, you know, all the effects are kind of like cool and again, like mystical and kind of weird and kind of silly. And then it gets like so aggressively real, like the battle scene on the snow, where there's just like gallons of blood.
Well, yeah, that's another thing that I was having a slightly difficult time with is we just came off of, and we're not talking about the quality of it, but we just came off the 8th season of Game of Thrones, which is such an insanely high bar. It was kind of trippy going back and being like, oh, remember when this was state of the art? Like, remember when these battles were like the height of like television storytelling?
Where it's like, I can see the plastic that those swords are just plastic. Like, they're not even trying. They're so shiny.
It's maybe 60 guys at best.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
And I just like, I didn't realize how spoiled we have gotten. And especially younger people, it's like they've become so accustomed to, because I like to watch those kids react or teens react and stuff. And remember we joked about how like on the kids react, like children as young as 5 know the word time lapse.
Oh, okay.
And you were like, how do they know that word? And I was like, iPhones have a time lapse option.
Funny. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. And so it's crazy to think of what people are accustomed to nowadays, that to go back to this time, it's like, and I mean, I guess it's not unique to us, because I remember watching like Star Trek episodes and stuff when I was a kid, but I think things are moving so fast that it's like I feel like from 1998 to now, we've like advanced like 5 decades instead of 2.5. Like,
well, but I mean, even if you think about, because like 2 years after this, the first Lord of the Rings came out.
That was blowing my mind too.
And that's like leaps and bounds above this in terms of effects. And obviously that had like a bigger budget, and ILM was doing everything, After Effects and everything, but it's like it's impressively better.
It's almost like there's a hard line in the sand in 2001. Like there's like a pre and a post. Yeah. And I mean, we really got to live through the birth of CGI. I mean, I remember, Jurassic Park and Independence Day, and then going, and I can honestly remember the first time that I couldn't spot the difference in a movie. Like the first time that I couldn't see the effect was the War of the Worlds movie with Tom Cruise. Oh,
okay. Gosh, that would be interesting to revisit.
And that was one of the first times where I was like, I don't know where the line is, like where the and I mean, when you consider, like, if you've ever seen the behind the scenes stuff for Infinity War and Endgame, I mean, those movies are practically like Sin City.
Yeah.
Like they're practically just green screened everything. Like, because I can't remember if we ever said this. Those suits, the like suits that they wore to go back at the nanotech suits or whatever, not nanotech.
The Ant-Man suits.
Yeah, those
they all have. Yeah.
Those were digital.
No way.
They were completely CGI.
So they're just wearing green?
No, they were wearing whatever they wore in the next. Because remember that it would like Thor would be back in his Thor clothes or whatever.
Oh my God, funny.
Because they were filming too far in pre-production. The suits hadn't even been designed yet, and they just like. That was all entirely digital. It kind of reminded me of Fury Road, where it was like the mountains and that are fake, and it's like when they really work on special effects, like basically there's no such thing as shitty special effects anymore. There's just ran out of time or money.
Sure. Do you want to hear something hilarious that's off topic, except for it's kind of about effects and stuff like that?
Sure.
Okay. The movie Pleasantville, which I love. There is that scene where Joan Allen has turned into color, but she has to look like she's still in black and white for her husband's friends. So she puts makeup on that makes her black and white. And so there have to be pictures or footage somewhere of Joan Allen painted completely green. And I want them, but I can't find them. And
would it be green or would it be the gray?
No, it was green.
Oh, okay.
In the trivia, it says she was painted green so that they could make it black and white, and I think that is hysterical. And that's it. That's the story. I just want a picture of that. So if anybody has connections, let me know.
I just have that picture of Clea Duvall from the set of Ghost of Mars, and that's it. That is a true story. I have a photograph of Clea Duvall from Ghosts of Mars.
That's not helpful to my situation
No,
right now.
nor is it helpful to Merlin.
No. Moving on.
I don't feel like I was done with Miranda Richardson, but well, she's also the Lady of the Lake, which, again, another bold choice. And I don't remember the Lady of the Lake being such a bitch when I watched it the first time.
Oh, yeah, she is.
She's got a Glinda thing going on.
Yeah.
It's
and
like,
she's got her little fish necklace, and she's like, deuces.
Oops, I shouldn't have said that. I laughed out loud at that part. I think that this miniseries, in spite of the fact that it might be a little bit boring at times, I think it's really good for young people and families.
Yeah.
Because it was an event when it came out, and I remember watching it, and I remember, my friends watching it, and also they played it at school. It was the half day before Christmas break, and they just put it on the TVs, and we just didn't do anything. It was appropriate. Like, it touched on all the things that needed to be touched on, including, like the incest and the adultery, but in very palatable ways.
Yeah, there's lots of things that are, like, vaguely alluded to, and you don't, like, if you're connecting the dots, you get it, but if you're too young to connect the dots, it sort of flies right over your
Well, you get it, but, like, you definitely get it, but it's like, you couldn't diagram it. Like, you know what I mean? You couldn't.
Yeah.
To the point where when we actually saw Lancelot and Guinevere, like, rolling around on bed, I was like, oh my.
Exactly.
That's the most, because it kept cutting away in all the other scenes. But so on that note, I did find it, as an adult in the year 2019, I found it kind of simplistic. Like, I found the script to be a bit thin. It was a lot of characters stating their motivations.
Well, sure.
Because it's a massive story, and there's a part of me that's like, 3 hours. It's 182 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so much time. But then when we're actually watching it, I'm like, oh man, we're just breezing right through this. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so I would really go to praise it for being kind of like a crash course in the Arthurian legend. Arthurian. I always say author. It's Arthurian legend. And I was about to say if it were more accurate, but therein lies the problem.
It's not accurate.
Well,
but there's also so many versions.
Yeah, Mab is not anywhere in it, in the Arthurian legend. She's a Shakespearean creature, or creation, rather. They
needed a villain.
No, I know. I was going to get to, because I know a lot about it, and so I was going to do a deep dive kind of explaining the Arthurian legend, and it's funny because for a long time I would sort of discredit this production because they made up elements and added it, but once you know a lot of the backstory of the Arthurian legend, I realized that the changes they made are kind of necessary because there are so many versions. It goes back to, I think, around the 4th century is where the first references to Arthur and Mordred, weirdly, are like Arthur and Mordred are the two things that we know, and that Arthur led the Britons to victory against the Saxons. But it was born out of like the fall of the Roman Empire. Growing up, I mean, I'm obviously aware of all of these words and time periods and stuff, but it's been interesting as an adult kind of sewing them all together as as like an if-then versus just abstract concepts.
Well, I remember one of my favorite things is we were watching Black Sails at the same time that Outlander started, and I was like, oh my god, these are happening at the same
concurrently.
time.
Yeah,
like, it's so interesting.
And because around that time, we also watched the movie Belle.
Yeah,
and they referenced that trial in Black Sails, and so it was like 3 pieces of media were at the same time. It never quite dawned on me that, the Dark Ages were... I mean, I knew the Dark Ages preceded the fall of the Roman Empire, but I didn't realize why. Like, I didn't realize that there was suddenly no major government anymore. So it just, gotcha. Europe was basically run by warlords, like competing kings and kingdoms and stuff, and it was just a big mess. And then at that time, Christianity was like rampantly taking over for better and worse, and
and then it just never stopped.
Well, it feels like a long time ago, but we're still relatively when you consider human history. I mean, the modern human has been around for 10,000 years, so we're 1,500, off from that. But we have Arthur and Mordred. And then somewhere around there, Merlin comes in, but he's pretty vague.
Mhm.
And then Guinevere comes in after that. And then the most interesting thing that I found in my research is that after the Crusades, there was this concept of like courtly love
Oh, okay.
that was very popular, especially in the English and French, mostly French aristocracy.
Sure.
And it was, as I found, heavily influenced by some of the Arabic teachings on love and stuff. And it was this weird sort of almost contradiction to what we know of modern Christianity, but it was because marriages at the time weren't about love. It was the notion that love was noble and being in love made you a better person.
Interesting.
So there were these relationships that were frequently unconsummated, but also as time went, they started becoming consummated. And it was sort of this dance, and that's where we get the whole maiden with the knight. It's like the maiden is typically married. It's like a queen or something. And she has this knightly lover that they, there's lots of longing glances, and it's a secret affair. And it was this belief that it made you a better person.
That's interesting, because I was going to make a comment about, you were like, and then Guinevere came in, and I was like, yeah, they needed a Mary Magdalene to throw into this.
Well, she didn't start
sins
that
or whatever.
way. Yeah, she didn't start that way.
Yeah, that's
when Lancelot was added, it was of the time. It was something that was very popular. It was very in vogue. And so the way we've reconciled that moving forward, because of course now we have, society is monogamous.
And now she has a scarlet letter.
Well, we have to pick a villain.
Yeah.
So we either make Arthur the bad guy, who's like the neglectful husband, or we make Lancelot the bad guy, who is the like scheming,
interloper.
Backstabbing. Yeah, interloper. Or we make her the bad guy, being the whore.
They actually kind of did all three in this.
Yeah.
I was a little impressed, honestly, because I was like, nobody comes out the clear winner in that.
And that, because I remember noticing that as a kid, being like, I don't understand whose side I'm supposed to be on, because Guinevere and Lancelot are romanticized to such a degree, the same way that like Arthur and Guinevere are.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you understand the history of it, it actually becomes quite fascinating.
No, it super is. And I think maybe for next year we should watch The Mists of Avalon.
Oh boy, I haven't seen that.
Oh God. I used to watch it all the time. It's another one. It was an NBC thing. But what I will say is that they get into threesome territory with Guinevere, Lancelot, and Arthur, which is, to me,
with
hilarious.
All three of them?
All three of them.
Okay, because I was going to say that's the one element missing.
No, it's all three of them, because she
Lancelot
can't get...
and Arthur's jack-off videos where...
No. No, because she can't get pregnant. Well, I don't know if Arthur and Lancelot bone each other, but they get implied.
They just sort of like are bros being bros.
They're all three in bed together because Arthur can't get her pregnant. And so then it's like, Lancelot, please step up for me. We should definitely watch The Mists of Avalon. Michael Vartan plays Lancelot.
Oh God. I know Angelica Houston. Isn't she the Lady of the Lake?
I don't know. She's in Avalon. She's one of the priestesses of Avalon.
Well, but this is also the thing, because character, like the Lady of the Lake has, and I'm serious, if you pull up Wikipedia, she's got like 17 names depending on where. It's usually some version of Nimue or Vivian. But there are also versions where they are, because I read a version when I was young where Vivian was like Morgana's student.
Okay.
And Vivian was sent to seduce Merlin, and the Lady of the Lake existed purely to give Arthur the sword. So there's like versions upon versions upon versions. And this is another thing that changes through time, is Morgana's presence. In earlier versions, she's just sort of like a scheming sorceress. And there's even versions where she just sort of grows out of it and moves to Avalon. And
is that Morgan Le Fay?
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot. Again, you're right. There's a lot of names. There's a lot of versions.
And in the earliest versions, Mordred was just another king that Arthur did battle with.
Okay.
But depending on what point in history, he goes from being just some dude to being Arthur's brother, to being his nephew, to being his son. And so when you are considering which version it is, it changes Morgan's involvement as to whether or not she's like a scheming. And so shock, I'm sure you're not surprised, but both as history progresses, as we get more modern, both Morgan and Guinevere start getting villainized or vilified. Sure. But it's really all very interesting, especially because I thought it was so funny that Lancelot was added. Like Lancelot, it was like fan fiction. Lancelot was just some character that one of the authors just wrote into the story in like the year 1200 and changed everything. And
funny.
Yeah, it's just really, and I feel like this should happen more than it does. For instance, with like a lot of Greek myths, sure, there are versions of Greek myths, but I feel like there's like, 2 or 3 versions.
Well, you have to imagine that it was mostly oral for like hundreds of years.
I guess, and also it's like Arthur, to many people throughout history and even today, is regarded as real, as the first king of Britain. And so depending on...
he's kind of like Jesus that way, where it's like, yes, Jesus was a real person.
Well, yeah, no, I get that. And I was actually heading there, but I was like, I feel like with the Bible, though there are versions of it, it's been more sturdy than maybe because it was regarded as religion versus, history or legend or myth or what have you. But it's like, it's really interesting. And also because the Christian elements of Arthur weren't added until like later, because that's where the Holy Grail comes from. Because the Holy Grail was news to me. That wasn't in a version that I read when I was younger. And that's because it's not in all the versions.
Right.
And because in one version there is a grail, but it's not the Holy Grail. And the next thing you know, and it's like, and it's also interesting to me that as the Christian elements are being added to it, so are the pagan. In a weird way. Like it didn't start pagan and then go Christian. It's like they almost, again, there was a need for a villain. So when they brought the Christianity into it, that's when they gave the pagan the like stronger connections and stuff. And it's really, really interesting because I was watching and I wrote down some of the things that like a bibliography. Like I was on Wikipedia, a YouTube channel called Overly Sarcastic Productions, Hello Future Me, biographics. I was like doing research on this stuff. One of them was talking about how that's even to this day and age, that like merger of paganism and Christianity hasn't gone away. Like in Ireland, it is illegal to pave over fairy circles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like it's just, they're like, why would you do that? That's bad luck.
Just in case, you guys. Come on.
Yeah. And so I do find it very interesting how we think of religion as being so finite because, the people in charge are constantly telling us that. But it's really not. Like, it's really, I mean, look at the Protestants and the Catholics. I mean, it's like one group of people needed a female presence more than the other. And next thing you know, we're going to war over how important the Virgin Mary is. Like,
right.
it's all actually kind of fascinating when you step back and look at it for what it is. That's what kind of brings me back to the Merlin miniseries, is that I think the inclusion of Mab clears some things up.
Okay.
Instead of pushing the blame or the onus of villain onto one of these characters, and therefore, doing certain versions of disservice to just bring in a new villain.
Gotcha.
Actually, I think kind of works.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And
what's funny, and this will not shock you at all, but coming from me, but I was well into the miniseries. Like, I feel like a good 30 or 40 minutes into hour 2 by the time I realized she was a villain.
Oh.
Because I was kind of on her side.
Well, you just do love Miranda Richardson.
Well, yeah, but it's like I was kind of on her side as the old world pagan,
Sure.
The part of me that watches American Gods was like, Team Queen Mab. Like, it was when she did something. I think it was to Frick, which, okay, I have a little side quest that
if you are about to complain about Martin Short, I will have words for you.
I actually love Martin Short.
Sweet, okay.
But a little bit goes a long way.
I don't think he's overused in this.
No.
Okay.
I mean, just in general, he does a very specific thing that if he were in more things, they'd be like, that's enough Martin Short. But I actually kind of love him.
Me too.
And I didn't know that. I was prepared for the opposite. I was prepared for you to be like, I don't have a stomach for him.
No, I love Martin Short. Father of the Bride is one of my favorite movies.
I actually haven't seen that, but
we should watch it sometime. We should have done it for Father's Day. We did a Mother's Day episode, not a Father's Day episode.
Well, he's in a movie called Get Over It.
Oh yeah.
That is a retelling of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
I thought it was As You Like It.
No, it's Midsummer. I promise.
Oh, okay.
Because we talked about doing it last year for Midsummer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it has him, obviously, and it has Kirsten Dunst and Mila Kunis and Ben Foster and Cisco.
That's the selling point.
Uh-huh. Other people, Shane West and Vitamin C, and yeah, it was, I remember loving it. I also have not revisited it since I was like 16, so who knows? But
yikes.
I remember him being very funny in that. And also anytime he's hosted SNL recently has been very funny.
Yeah, he is actually, I don't know if the tour is ongoing, but one of the last things he did was like a comedy tour with Steve Martin. Because they're like best friends.
Mm-hmm. No, I really liked Frick a lot. And again, he's also added for this production. And it's the kind of thing that I think could have aged poorly, but it didn't.
Yep.
Well, a few elements of it did.
Well, sure, but it's
the yellow face doesn't age all that great, but
right. But it's like overall, he's not doing anything super timely with his performance.
Which is the like risk you run with those types of performers sometimes. And again, it's like the thing with the effects, the special effects, save for the dragon and the griffins. I still am not over the griffins. For the most part, this production knew what it was and knew what it was capable of.
Yeah.
So I like a handful, most of the effects when they were happening, I was like, this is good. Like,
yeah, it's
I was
not bad at all.
The way that he shapeshifts when he turns and stuff, it's all very interesting. And I love all the jerky, because it also goes with the ramping of the speed, like the slowing down and speeding up. There's a few times where, like, you know, Mob screams and the camera does that like whiplash, like zoom out. And it's really interesting. Also, did she scream that woman to death? That was a little bit weird.
Oh,
Ambrosia.
Ambrosia, yeah. I think she did, actually.
And I was kind of like, what was Ambrosia cooking with onions and leeks? It feels like overkill, but
too much onion flavor.
Too much. Because I don't think that I ever fully watched the whole thing. I was shocked by the end. How much I liked the end that he was there. And I love the nod where he's like, I don't remember it that way. Because it's like they at least acknowledge that there's so many different versions of this story.
Yeah, I also just wanted to give a quick shout out because I think Fabio Frick could get it.
Yeah. Honestly, it like feels weird to say, but true. I thought it too.
Martin Short is like, I mean, he's like a weird little man, but he's not ugly.
It was a thing. But it was a thing that I would cross off a list, I'll tell you that much. Do we want to talk about Helena Bonham Carter?
Always.
This is my introduction to her.
I think it might have been mine, too.
In tried and true form, she was doing several things. That lisp, too, because we've gotten that lisp from her a few times.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I wonder if that's something they told her to do, or if that was an acting choice on her part. I'm so curious.
Feel like probably on her part, but when she was made beautiful, it was visceral to me. I could remember it. Yeah. And again, it has this like very 90s thing, but in the most timeless of ways. It like kind of reminds me of like the Sword and Sandals movies from the 40s and 50s, where it's like they are so clearly of their time, but also that's part of what makes it so iconic.
So I am going to disagree with you a little bit, just a little bit, because I think the most of its time thing in this entire miniseries is Arthur's hair.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
But
it was.
I agree with you about Helena Bonham Carter to a point, because she's got that like jewel tone smoky eye and like kind of frosty lipstick.
And the bold, like the satin of the Roman dress she was wearing. And because, I mean, that fabric was not around. That's like some Tara and Willow are about to go to prom shit. Go get the bendies from Claire's. Like,
oh man. No, I agree with you to a point. To me, it felt less like what you were talking about and more like Gladiator. So like the sword and sandals movies of it this time.
Okay, sure. Well, yes, it obviously looked more like that. But the point that I meant was it's like I guess the incongruity where it's like.
Sure, yes.
When something kind of like, well, I mean, they did Camelot, the musical in the 60s, and she's wearing like silver lame and chartreuse, and it's like, that is not period accurate, but it's iconic of its own in its own right.
No, I totally agree, because it's like, what chance was there that they had peacock blue fabric in the Dark Ages, you know?
Shimmery, yeah, to complement the smoky eye. And Helena Bonham Carter has such a look. I mean, I have no problem saying a great beauty, but it's not a conventional beauty. It's not, you know.
I kind of think that's what makes her good for period pieces, though, because I don't think she has a 90s look. You know, it's not like Kate Moss.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not like that. But this look, it's not surprising coming from me, but it's like her and Miranda Richardson are so iconic in this miniseries.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
It's just, man, wow. And, you know, going back to the script a little bit, it was a little thin. I did find things happening solely because the plot needed them to happen, and that's where I think and also I think that's more that's what I mean. I already mentioned Game of Thrones, and it's like Game of Thrones, that's where we're at in this point in time, is audiences are very sophisticated in this day and age. And the late 90s was sort of about pleasing everyone, you know what I mean? Like very middle, who can get the most viewers in a Nielsen.
Yeah, and I was gonna say this falls into the category of what the NBC Live shows are now, where it's like this was supposed to be appointment television. Like you sat down for those 2 Sundays and this is what you watched. In that regard, I feel like they were playing to a wider audience, because there was good TV on in 1998. I mean, there's more good TV on now, and most of it's better. But
it's like, I think Oz started in 98, and Oz was, The Sopranos.
I think The Sopranos were on already, yeah. So
99 is The Sopranos, but I was going to say The Sopranos gets credit for creating
prestige TV.
Yeah, the modern era of prestige TV, and I always thought that it started a little bit sooner with Homicide and Oz.
Yeah.
This was very broad appeal, and that's where kind of dumbing down, for lack of a better term, the story,
agreed,
plays a role. But Lena Headey does something very specific, and she's very good at doing that specific thing. Because there was a lot of Cersei in Guinevere.
Well, I mean, there is a lot of Cersei in this Guinevere. It's just, you kind of have to take your lumps, I guess. I agree with you, though. I think she's better than that, but Cersei is like the biggest thing we've ever seen her do. And like Queen Gorgo. Yeah,
but again, there are these statuesque queens with like more under the surface, that lots of scheming and looks and lip quivers and.
I mean, I think Guinevere's less scheming and more not even opportunistic, but regardless, I kind of want to.
It wasn't an insult. I wasn't necessarily saying she's a one-trick pony. I just was like, she gets cast in these roles.
Yes. No, that's accurate. I kind of want to watch that movie where she falls in love with Piper Perabo.
Imagine Me and You.
Yeah.
I've seen it, but I don't remember hardly anything about it. But I said, what the crap are these sugar glider griffins? I mean, points for creativity, for trying something new, but it didn't work. I mean, you noticed that, right? That was their wings?
I didn't, actually.
It was webbing between their front and back legs.
Oh.
Yeah. It was weird.
That's creepy.
Yeah, it was really, because griffins traditionally have eagle wings, and I'm all for shaking things up, but it wasn't realized well enough for my taste. Oh, I actually was like surprised by how pretty some of the costumes were, that they aged well, like Guinevere's wedding dress and stuff with all the pearls and everything.
Yeah, all the pearls.
Oh, God. I have another note that I was like, what the crap is this final battle? When Queen Mab went all Lady Deathstrike with her fingers and stuff, it got real crazy at the end. And then I wrote down that I was like, I'm not entirely sure this is how forgetting works. I was like, otherwise the movie would have been called Turning Your Back Towards Sarah Marshall.
It was not so much forgetting as it was like
ignoring
death by Tinkerbell, kind of, where it's like you just aren't getting direct attention anymore.
It was, I mean, I'll let them have it, especially at that point. I was sort of like, okay, but I did kind of, when we got to the end, I kind of laughed because I feel like they were like, shit, we got to end with a bang. And it was like, so they just started throwing things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, I wrote down in the middle at one point, I was like, holy shit, is that horse just talking?
Yeah, Sir Rupert.
Yeah. And then the very last line, when he makes them young again, we didn't really talk about Isabella Rossellini. I understand her character arc because it was in the script, but I was like, you just burned your face, B. Like,
yeah, it's like Sam Neill still loves you. Get that D, girl.
And she was just so melodramatic. The whole thing was very melodramatic, but
I can't even look at myself.
But no, when he made them young again, and he just goes, no more, that's it, that's the end of magic. And I was like, oh, so did poor Rupert just drop dead off screen? Because Rupert literally goes, I've got some magic in me. Like,
oh my God.
Did you not think about that?
I didn't. Poor Sir Rupert. Sir Rupert deserves to keep living more than Nimue does. Yeah. She's such a, like, wet noodle.
Drip, yeah. Why did they only have one take of her screaming when the dragon was attacking?
I have no idea.
It was the same audio sample. It was like Isabella, it's like they called her in and she walked in with her coffee and screamed and was like, that's all you get.
Yeah.
And it was the same take of her face too. And it was odd. Ultimately, I'm glad we did this, and I'm also good. I'm like...
No, I'm good. I'm probably good for another 20 years before I watch it again.
Again, if I had kids, I think it would be a good way if they can handle the effects and the tonal stuff.
Sure, yeah.
I started to say this earlier, but I was watching a kids react to Madonna.
Oh,
and
okay.
It was blowing their minds because they were young. The ages were 5 to 11.
Uh-huh.
And it was blowing their minds because they started off with like, shh, express yourself.
Okay.
And they were like, this is old. And then they showed the Material Girl, which is like, it's designed to look like the 60s.
Okay.
And then after that, they showed them Vogue, and it was in black and white, and that took them all the way out. They were like, is this 100 years ago? And like,
oh my God.
Yeah, it was funny.
That's hilarious. Well, I will tell you that this really made me want to watch a lot more of those miniseries, especially the ones that used to come on Sci-Fi, because all I want to do now is watch Dune and Children of Dune.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I'm not going to make you do it. I want to do it.
Well, yeah, but I was like, we talked about doing the Miss of Avalon. I'm a little bit interested in, and that was in the mid 2000s. Wasn't that like 2004 or 2005?
Let's see. I had it open. Let me see. 2001.
Oh.
So yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Fucking Angelica Houston, Juliana Margulies, and Joan Allen are like the ladies in this one. Oh God, I remember loving it. Okay, because it's like a little more adult.
Yeah, I remember that.
Than Merlin, and so I remember loving it and being like, I shouldn't be allowed to watch this, probably.
But my mom had the Miss of Avalon book, and I remember knowing it was adult. And I remember like trying to like page through it to like get the adult stuff, and then I was just bored because I was like, I don't know what any of this means.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was thinking about how, like, I'm still insisting that we do the Magical Legend of the Leprechauns, but it's, like, cut to us having to actually watch it, and I'm going to be like, fuck, why did I do this?
I was going to say, that one's, like, actually bad, right?
Well, yeah. Tara Tomasello loved it, so I don't know what to tell you. She made us watch it, like, all the time, because I had the DVD, and I was like, I mean, I guess.
Hilarious.
So, I think that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and hopefully you enjoy your midsummer if you celebrate it. And if you don't, then what are you waiting for?
Yeah, go do it.
Get you a honeysuckle candle and
some mead.
At it. At it.
And I don't know, some mead, roast a goat on an open flame.
Oh, I don't know.
It'll
about
be fun.
That, but
Goat's delicious.
Sure, but that...
Just go
that feels
find a
bit
goat.
much. Okay.
You're like, oh, is that all it takes?
Don't forget to sacrifice to the blood moon and...
All right, I think we're out. You good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, as always, you can follow us on Twitter @SoI'mWatching, Instagram @SoI'mWatchingThisShow. We're also on Facebook and Tumblr, So I'm Watching This Show. I think, again, no music this week, yeah?
Nope. Unless you want to hear the Hercules, the Legendary Journeys.
Just throw it on there. So I'm Watching This Show, the music. And then other than that, just please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. And that's it for us. Bye.